This week on Quality Digest Live, we talked to Chad Keimel, president of Omnex Systems, about information security in ISO 27001. What exactly does the standard provide, and can it really help prevent your company's information from being hacked? Find out in 30 seconds. Welcome back to Quality Digest Live. QDL is your weekly look on who and what is making news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, editor-in-chief of Quality Digest. Cyber attacks are so common now that most of them don't even show up in the news anymore. Just this past February, for instance, state-sponsored hackers were caught in the early stages of gaining access to computer systems at the Australian Federal Parliament. Airbus revealed it was targeted by Chinese hackers who stole the personal and IT identification information of some of its European employees. Norwegian software company Visma revealed that it had been targeted by hackers from the Chinese Ministry of State Security who were attempting to steal trade secrets from the firm's clients, and so on and so forth. So it's important that companies begin to establish a framework of processes and procedures that can identify the security risks and then what to do about them, and then use that framework to build a more robust security system. And that is where ISO 27001 comes in. ISO 27001 is a security information management system, and it's an approach to managing sensitive company information so that it remains secure. It's kind of a risk management process that includes people, processes, and IT systems. And here to talk about ISO 27001 with us today is Chad Keimel, president of Omnex Systems. He's in India right now, but he had a chance to join us, so we wanted to get him on the line here to talk about this. Hi, Chad.
Hey, Dirk.
How you doing? Hey, before we get all the way in India, I know it's really late for you over there, so I won't keep you too long. But first, briefly, just a quick synopsis of what ISO 27001 is.
So, Dirk, when you look at ISO 27000, it's an information security standard. It includes, cyber security. So when you usually talk about hacks, you're talking about cyber security. In fact, when people succinctly talk about information security, they like to say there's a CIA there. It stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. So information security really thinks about how to make information really available, confidential, and and have its integrity. So it tries to protect information both inside the organization and from outside.
Okay, and this is a I believe they called it, and I mentioned it there at the beginning, ISO calls this a risk management system. So how does that vary from, is that just a fancy way of saying, a regular quality management system standard, which of course includes risk right now, or is this really something, is a risk management system really something different?
It is quite different. Well, it is and it isn't. Now, ISO is very worried about, what they call proliferation of standards. So ISO 27001 needs to follow, what they call the Annex SL, which is the high-level structure, meaning all the different ISO management systems have the same high-level structure, which makes it easy to integrate with, let's say, ISO 9001 or 14001. Of course, what makes this very different is there are several requirements in here very integral to information security, including about 132 different controls that you have to implement. You either have to implement fully, or you have to implement something equivalent, or you'll have to have a good explanation why you have left these controls out. These controls are in something called Annex A of ISO 27001.
And do you, I guess what I'm still trying to understand here is...
Yeah, please, go ahead.
I guess what I'm trying to understand here is that the standard when I think of security, I guess I'm looking at, I want something to tell me, okay, this is how you secure your data. These are the processes you need to do to make sure your data is safe. But that isn't really what this standard does, right? I mean, it's kind of like other ISO standards, quality management system standards, where it's kind of providing you a framework, right, to kind of make sure you're hitting all the bases.
That's the whole idea, of course. It has a plan, do, check, act. In the planning part of it, you have to set goals and objectives around, your information security. And then, of course, you'll have to measure yourself towards your goals. So how do you guarantee your goals? You guarantee your goals by doing a risk assessment of your information security, and then carefully putting controls in place so that the information security, the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of information is secure. One part of that is, of course, cybersecurity. So again, it's a complete management system from setting goals, setting policies, setting the controls, then measuring yourself to make sure you're doing well. And part of that measurement is having metrics to tell you how well you're doing, also doing assessments and audits to make sure your controls are in place. Okay. I hope that helps.
Yeah. I think I get where we're going.
Dirk, we're going to spend a lot more time on this. It's next week, I believe Tuesday. We're doing a 1-hour webinar on this subject where we can talk about it in greater detail. By the way,
that's right.
Make sure your audience realizes is in my article for Quality Digest, Dirk, I talked about the role of leadership and for the CEO to understand how important cybersecurity and information security is. And I think it's really important to know that the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission that governs all the companies in the stock market, came up with guidance last year that every company needs to put in place processes and controls. And really, it then becomes in fact, they called it important to the US economy that companies do this.
Do you think most companies understand the danger to their security?
They do and they don't. I'll say that even from Omnex's side, it is only this year, last year, when we put our ISO 27001 system in place. I knew as the CTO and one of the top management inside Omnex, I knew we were weak. I mean, in fact, Dirk, if you go into a hotel for Quality Digest and you call into your email, you should not be doing that. It's one of the things that we need to change. So Omnex is currently going through a big change in terms of how we maintain and what kind of controls we do to change the culture inside the organization. So in my belief, the CEOs know, but they don't maybe really understand, the impetus and the need to make this change happen, and that they need to lead.
So, and this is kind of now kind of rounding out my understanding then. So, talking about leadership and ISO 27001 and security, basically, if you're following ISO 27001, you're kind of making sure that you're looking at the areas of your the risk areas of your company's IT, your entire IT structure and your security and so forth.
Not just IT. It is about hiring of people.
Really?
You have to hire the right people, because a huge number of information security issues happen from your own employees. It could be a malicious act. It could be thievery of your own company's information.
And the standard touches on that as well.
Sorry to stop you there. Yeah, it's not just IT. It's about, as I mentioned to you, our people going and staying in hotels and not having a VPN, it completely opens you up for a cyber attack. Now, in Omnex, we have cybersecurity experts. In fact, what we were told is, how you get those emails and sometimes you even click. I never thought it's wrong to click an email. In fact, what they could do is inject a worm into your system, and that one little click, even though you didn't download anything, just by clicking that email and going to that site, you may have gotten a worm.
Right.
So it's quite a different world today, and if we're not careful, all of us will lose our IP, our intellectual property.
Right.
It's easy, and it's easy for the taking.
As far as you know, is ISO 27001 becoming a requirement for some industries? Now, I'm thinking in the way that, AS 9100 or, the automotive standard, or even ISO 9001 is a requirement. You can't do business with this company unless you're ISO 9001 registered. Are we starting to see that with 27001?
So, let me just quote my own article that I wrote for you guys. Right now, if you want to work with the U.S. government, if you want to be a contractor for the U.S. government, the U.S. government, of course, is taking a lead with all the things that have happened with the hacking that's taken place in the government itself. We have gotten very, very, intense. There are a couple of different what they call NIST standards. I'm finding that in my own article, which is in this. I don't know when you guys are going to be running this, but maybe I think it's already in your
already ran,
website.
Ran on Tuesday, yeah. The article you're talking, very good article, by the way.
Thank you. So the NIST 800-53 provides a catalog of security controls for all U.S. federal information systems. And if you're a contractor, that was a deadline. I forget the exact deadline. You had to become NIST certified to those controls.
Okay.
Now, these controls are akin to those Annex A controls in 27001. But what 27001, so let me tell you the difference between the two. In one, you're just going and implementing these controls. In the other one, you're looking at the entire organization. You're setting a policy. You're setting objectives. You're doing internal audits. You're doing management review. You're looking at training and competency for employees into your organization, and you're putting controls in place. So where you put the annex, the controls for 27001, you can put in the controls for NIST, and that way get 27001 and NIST. So in short, even though nobody's saying 27001, everybody is saying put policy, processes, and controls in place. Who's everyone? Number one, the U.S. government. If you want to do business with the U.S. government, you have to do it. Number two, the SEC has come up with an advisory that all U.S. companies traded in the stock market needs to put in policies, processes, and controls for cybersecurity.
Okay. All right.
And I see this becoming more and more important, Dirk. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, and I know I don't want to steal your thunder here. You are, as you mentioned, you do have a webinar coming up next Tuesday. You'll be presenting, I'll be hosting. I know you're going to cover a lot of this information, plus a lot more. That webinar, as Chad mentioned, that is April 2nd, that's next Tuesday, at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, and I'm assuming you'll be back from India before then?
Yes, I'm this weekend, and I should be back Monday.
Perfect. And then we'll hook up with you on Tuesday. If you're interested in registering, the link is right underneath the player page there. You can just click on that. Your company security is really important, as Chad mentioned, for a lot of reasons. So be informed. Don't miss this webinar. It's going to be really good. Chad Kaimal, President of Omnex, thanks for joining us on Quality Digest Live.
Thank you, Dirk. I'll just leave the audience with one thought.
Sure.
You know, You can hire firms to come and break into your system. So we work with folks who do that. And what they told me is they have never failed to break in a company's IT system.
Wow.
So think about that and think how vulnerable all our companies are. So it's really time to act.
It's pretty scary, actually, when you think about it.
Yes.
All right, Chad, thanks for joining us. And that is it for QDL today. As usual, if there is someone you would like to see on the show or some topic you would like us to cover, send those ideas to us at qdl@qualitydigest.com, and we will try to bring those people or talk about those topics on the show. That's it for today. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. So long.